Okay, this is a quick video on the split function that Python has built in. And basically the purpose of the split function is to take a string and to split it apart and place those parts in a list. So, and a very simple usage would be something like this. We have a piece of text, in this case this space is space a space test. And then if we use the split method of that text object and then stick that into X, what's going to happen is we'll talk about the output and then talk about Y. But the output is going to be a list with 4 items because that sentence had 4 words in it. So basically, if we call split with no arguments, that is meaning to split on white space. And what white space is one or more characters that cause an effect for us to see white space. So a space is white space, 4 spaces in a row is white space, a tab is white space, new line characters are white space, that type of thing. So just calling split splits on white space. Now sometimes that's what you want to do, and other times for various reasons you want to split on something else. So here I'm going to show an example of taking output. In this case I am using subprocess.run to run the ipconfig command. The first argument is get if_addr, and then the en0 is the active network interface on my machine. So I want to issue ipconfig space get if address space en0, and I want Python to capture that output. So that's what the capture output equals true does on that. I then want to get the standard out, whatever this command would have normally printed to the screen. If I ran it interactively, I want to get that output and stick it into a variable called output. And then what I need to do is I need to decode that, because what I'm going to get from standard out is a byte stream, and I actually want it to be a character string or just string. So I decode that into a UTF-8 encoding, and then I have a string whose name is IP that has the output of that ipconfig command. And then what I'm going to do, in this case I'm going to split on periods. So what I will have is an IP address which has 4 octets, something like 128.163.2.42 for example. We split on the period, and then I'm going to turn around and print the octets out. So looking at the output, this is what we're going to get. So this is my private IP on the machine that I'm making this presentation on. It is 192.168.0.26. So I have each of those octets broken into a separate item in this list. And the other thing that you would need to deal with, either when you first get the output or after you break this apart, is that new line character that would have printed out is there stuck onto the end of the 26. So I decided to leave that there so I could point out that sometimes you get new line characters that you would need to use something like rstrip or some other method to get rid of, so that you don't inadvertently get extra lines in your output or something. The other thing that I thought was important to talk about is sometimes you know how many items you're going to get back. For example, if you split a valid IP address, you're going to get 4 numbers back. So when you know for sure, for example, here I have line equals 1, 2, 3. That is a string. I then split that on comma, and then if I print out what y is, it's going to tell me 2. Because I split that line into 3 items. First item went in X, second item went in Y, third item went into Z. And then I chose to print the middle one, which will output 2. So if you're very confident that you know how many things you're going to get from split and have that number of variables on the left hand side of the assignment statement, you're okay. But the question is, what happens if we have the wrong number of results or the wrong number of variables? So here's an example where I set line to 1, 2. I split it on comma and put it into 3 variables, and then I want to print out y again. Now, some languages will, set any extra variables to null or 0 or some default value. Python does not do that. This is going to generate output actually as a result of the second line of code, where it splits line into 2 values and tries to put it into 3 variables. And what's going to happen is it's going to raise an exception, value error. It's going to say it expected 3 values but only got 2, and your program is going to terminate execution. So that's not something we want to see when we're running our program. So the way to fix this is, there's my line that has 2 values in it with comma, is to stick it in a list. So if I do it this way, list is going to be whatever size is needed to get all the values that come out of my split function. Then I can say num equals length of list, and in this case I can say if that number is not equal to 3, print out wrong number of input values and tell me how many they got using that F string. So the output for this would be wrong number of input values 2. So if you don't know how many items you're going to get, or you want to do some error checking and not raise an exception, this is one way to do that when we're dealing with the split function. So that's the end of this really short presentation on the split function.